I have access.
Hi, I'm Phil Ferrero. I'm an Access developer here in the Denver, Colorado area. Tonight, I'm going to go over a coding tool that I use in my development through the Access IDE, Integrated Development Environment, and this tool is called MZ Tools. In particular, we're going to look at the tool as it relates to VBA. This tool can be used for a number of other Microsoft development environments, and we're just going to touch on VBA tonight. Okay. All right. MZ Tools. So I got some feedback earlier that the majority of people here do not use MZ Tools. MZ Tools is something that I've used for probably 10, 12 years. Prior to version 8.0, which is the current version, I used the version 3.0. This was a free version. The current version is, I believe, at a discounted price on the website. You can see the price there. Let's take a quick look at the other environments that you can use with MZ Tools. So you have Visual Studio, Visual Basic for applications, which is what we're going to use, Visual C#, Visual Basic.NET, some older languages. But for Access, of course, we're going to be using the VBA environment. Let's see. I don't want to go into too many details about what's changed or what the differences are. I've included in the presentation tonight a link to the differences moving from 3.0 to 8.0. If you've never used MZ Tools before, there's no real reason to visit this site, but for those who have, it might be a good thing to review with a cup of coffee, or maybe 2 cups, depending upon how much you want to read through the differences. So again, the differences are version 3.0, not any charge. Version 8.0, you had to pay a little bit. One of the main differences I noticed was in the menus. There were a couple niceties that I remember with 3.0. And of course, since I don't have 3.0 anymore, I can't go back and reminisce. But there are quite a few improvements, more than enough to enhance the use of the tool. And I've recovered a couple things that I kind of miss, and I'll probably talk to the developer once I get my feet wet with everything in this tool. We'll go past the marketing blurb. You can see that. Getting MZ Tools, for those of you who don't have it, you can purchase a license by going to the website, MZ Tools, basically coming here to the download area, downloading actually, you probably just want to buy it, upgrade. What this will do is once you purchase it, it's going to send you a link to your email. That's going to allow you to link directly to the setup file, which send out for VBA setup. And then there'll be a license file that you get at the same time. You just download that, connect to it through VB while you're in the VBA environment. Let's see. probably without any further ado, we should get right to the use of NZ tools. Okay, let's back out of here. We'll go kind of fresh off the beginning part here. So you have a database that you normally do a lot of work in, or you want to do some work in. Easy enough to get to the integrated development environment. You can go to open code, or you can just pick one of your favorite modules, and I think I have one picked out called NZ Tools, yeah. Now when this loads up, what should be noticeable to people who don't have NZ Tools is that you have quite a number of other menus. Not only do you have a number of menus in the bar here, the command bar area, you have NZ Tools main and other utilities, but you also have something that you can access along the top menu bar.
Oh, excuse me, did you install it as an add-in?
Actually, it's easy enough to go in. It is an add-in. Let me get to desktop. It's a setup, executable. Once you build this, we'll run through the implementation of this executable. It will automatically pop up once you open the integrated development environment. So we won't run through all the steps because this will, I think, downgrade me to whatever it came with what I originally purchased. But it is a nice thing about it is you don't have to connect up anything. The only thing you do have to connect up is the license, which is here, and you just download it.
So Access knows it's there once you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have another tool, B-Tools, that works that way as well, but it disappears every time Microsoft does an update.
I've heard that happens.
Does that happen with NZ Tools? Or
That
does
it
stick
disappears when
you get an update on Office?
No. NZ Tools is it's reliable for any updates that you get for Office. The only thing, of course, we'll go over a couple of these scenarios. Once, let's say you change from one PC to another, you have to reinstall NZ Tools. There's a need. You can export some of the setup that you've done and then import it into another area, or maybe if you have another development PC, you want to do that. So it's not. It's only shareable along the desktop. So, okay. But yes, it is an add-in here. And along with that, you can make sure that it gets loaded on startup, which you'll need to do pretty much every time you come into the development environment. Okay. So we'll be in the presentation part of things. Okay, so big menu, not only along the bottom, but as well, quite a lot to digest from top to bottom along the menu bar. Okay, so let's go through a few things. Maybe we should go through setup, kind of stuff that I got used to using, stuff that has helped me. One of the things that will probably be good to touch base on first is there's an options area, both here and a lot of things are duplicated on this up and down menu. So there's the options, same menu. Now in 3.0, for people who are familiar with that, I believe there was just one area where you could, where you updated. And now with this current version, there are personal and team options. Really, I haven't delineated why the difference, but team options hold some things which I use quite a bit. Personal options perhaps might be specific to maybe what I like, but really from a desktop application, it's really everything is here that you like, basically. So let's go, I'll show you a couple things and then we'll see how it's worked into MZ Tools. So one of the things that when you start off with coding, of course, you're going to make some entries into the VBA Integrated Development Environment. You're going to probably start off with a private or public function sub, whatever you're trying to do. One of the things that I like to do with my code is make sure I've documented a lot of what's going on. And as you can probably imagine, or maybe you've done it in your code already, it's time intensive to comment things and to make sure that you have lots of information on what you've done. Because by the end of the day, you might have forgotten what you did in the morning. Clearly, by the end of the week, end of the month, you'll need some breadcrumbs to kind of go back on this trail. So one of the first things I do is I'll put a header in here. Now, this button right here, you can use that. I think there's an insert header if you right-click anywhere in the integrated development environment. Here, from the drop-down, you can see there's about 3 different ways to do the same thing. And what you'll notice is it put in this header. Right now, it's at the top of this particular subroutine, and it's got some information: copyright, date and time, who the author is, what the purpose is, stuff that I use to kind of determine what I'm doing with this particular procedure or function. Now, how do we get that there? Well, under team options, you have the ability to define what headers you want to put in for a module or a procedure or a number of things, and you'll see what other things are available. Well, let's look at this procedure. I want to edit it. I can apply this particular header to class object, module, enum, constant, and for this particular one, I've checked for functions and subs and properties to utilize this particular option. Now you can see there's a number of things I can put in here. I can, you know, if I'm working under a different organization, I can change that. You notice that there's some highlighted areas. These pull in things that are set, variables that are set in other parts of this application or this tool. So author is pulled from data input, so I can put my name as the author. Year is going to pull in the current year. That's from the system. So there's parts that you can edit and parts that are specific to what you want to define. So let's say I want to come in here and I want to change the procedure header I have. Well, for one thing, I like to have my header below the procedure that or the subroutine. So if I come in here, I can specify that I want to put it below. oops, right here, for items with a body, insert the header below the declaration. So I can decide to do it this way. If I edit here, I change the name of an organization. Maybe I'm working for somebody and they want this code to be to have their name splashed over it. Next time I come in and I add a header, it's going to change what's there. It's going to put it at the bottom below the declaration, which I requested. And as you can see, the year it populates, I requested to have the current year. If I wanted to change the author, I could do that by wanted to change my username to Phil Ferrero. So great. So everywhere in your code, that could be your author. So pretty handy to have once you start coding to apply a header and some information. I use this as well to track my changes in here. So let's say today I also added a variable. I might put that here. Then I can go through here right at the beginning of this procedure. I can see what I've done. Now, one thing you'll notice, sometimes I like to put 8-character dates. You can change that as well in the date. Date formatting. So if I wanted to use month, day, year. Next time I come in here, I'm going to put a 10-character date. So a couple nice things that you can do with your header. Another thing that I've found is very useful with this is having a code library. Now, this is a new laptop for me. My other one died. I have yet to kind of bring everything over. So a lot of the things that I have as far as my code is not included in here, but there are a couple things which I made sure I added. One would be, that's not it, something I'll call variable. So if I know that I'm going to need to declare a database and a record set and have a SQL string to apply to that record set and maybe execute that record set, I know I'm going to need some of those in my code. So I'm going to just apply it here. I can use a code library. I can open code library and then apply it just as simple as double clicking. So every time I come in here, I can apply the things that I'm used to applying. So let's just compile and build this code. We'll comment off this a moment.
Hey, Gary.
Comment off everything for the moment. Okay. So one of the things I'll point out is in the beginning of my code, I usually put an error handler.
Oh.
The old version 3.0 used to have a way to put the header and the error handler together. I don't know why you got rid of this, but
yeah.
Now you have to come in here and enter an error handler separately, but that's easy. There's a button right next to it. So, and again, one of the things that I haven't done in setting this up is uncheck some of the things I don't want to use. So let's go back into options. So in the same team options tab area under headers, there's error handlers. They come with some samples, but I have one in particular that I use. Let's try that again. I've unchecked the ones that come with it. I've checked mine. Okay. So now I have an error handler that I can, that I'll use as kind of like a framework for my code. It'll have an error handler done, which is basically just passing the routine through to this. On error resume next, set these things to nothing. If it turns out I don't use this code here for some reason, I can delete it. If for some reason I need to come in and delete other parts of the code, I can delete it. But it's always, this is kind of the basic building block of your code. And if you use something often, it's very handy to have this and set everything up right away. You'll notice a couple things here under the error handler. It applied the name of this particular module, and then applied the name of the procedure.
Did it detect whether it was a sub or a function or an exit sub? Or you have to define a different one?
You'll have to define a different one. It may be that it's done that, but in the past, when I've had a function, let's say,
You have to go in.
and I usually find it if I come in here and usually when I debug, but it changed it right away when I changed the top declaration statement. Let's go to see what this error handler does. As you can see, I've set above that any of the method body is going to be above the error handler, so it always goes to the bottom. And again, these are variables that you can set up in here. There's a list of them, you know, ones that you can utilize throughout these code examples that you're setting up, or the code library. But you'll see for the procedure, or for the error handler, I've got this project item name and code element name, and they map directly to what the module is and what the particular function or sub is. So every time I come in and I apply this particular error handler, it's going to apply whatever's here. So if I apply it to this procedure, I'm going to get the procedure name and as well the module name, which will be the same. All right, so any questions so far? Nope, pretty straightforward. Man, did I close down? No. So what did I like? One of the things, the code library we went over, the handlers we went over, the error handlers we went over, or I'm sorry, the headers we went over, the error handlers. One other nice thing, and I think this came up in another presentation that I did, I was all excited that I built this module that would allow me to check and make sure that I've put all my, that any code where error handling code where I'm asking for a line number, that I didn't have it missing. Because whenever you have line numbers and you're trying to then not find your error, and you don't have any line numbers, but you're calling them, it's tougher to track down the error. So let's go back to the, I'll show you what I mean here. So with my error handler that I apply here, I have this error line, okay? And what it includes is this variable ERL, which is a specific reference to the line number that you apply to a procedure for the purpose of tracking down what line number it is. Okay, so let's say I want to let's go back to my error check. So now I've got error code with an error line. So anytime I you know, the code bombs out, it'll go there and it'll supposedly take the error line number. Well, in this particular case, I don't have an error line. Let's remove the uncomment. Sorry about this. Comment. Okay. So I don't have any error line number here. If I come in, this is the thing I built. If I come in and check this, should be able to see that I have two things where I don't have line numbers. Now, what NV Tools allows you to do is apply line numbers, and it's as simple as basically clicking on this button here. So I can add, I can remove line numbers. I think I can add and remove line numbers by right-clicking here too. So if I'm in a particular procedure and I want to remove line numbers or add them, I can do that.
So removing or adding them just makes them visible or invisible, but they're always intrinsically there.
In essence, but they're intrinsically perhaps, but not accessible if you don't have them in the code.
Oh, yeah.
So if I don't include a line number in here, there it is. When I come down to this error handler, it will not show me a line number at all. Basically leave it at 0. So if I get an error that, you know, hey, you know, you have this 1,000 lines of code, and all of a sudden you're getting this error with a line number of 0. You don't have any way of tracking down among that 1,000 line function where your error is. However, if you put an error handler in there, now it might say 50 when the error's out here. Okay, if it errors out on the if statement, it'll return back. So now I know where I can start looking for my issue. And then this code was just basically a way that I could map all the code that I do have and figure out, did I forget to put line numbers? Because I don't do it for everything. I just really try to pinpoint where I might have trouble. If I have a function that has one line, it really doesn't make sense to go through and apply line numbers to it, although you could. There it is. Can. Okay.
Question.
Sure.
So the line numbers are per function or sub?
Correct.
What about on your form, on a form code? Will it be line 10 through 125?
Well, you're talking about the line that's the basis for the form, or the code that's the basis for the form. So let's say we open up this cover sheet. Okay, I haven't added any code to this or any line, but I could. And I also haven't added anything that's going to look for a line number. But that's just my judgment call. I've had this code running for many, many years.
Right, right.
I feel confident that I'm not going to run into any issues. So yes, any form, any report, any class, any module can apply.
Okay.
Okay. It'll do it function by function. So if I have, that's what you're asking? Okay.
Yeah.
So if I have this link table.
You could use it for, you know, we all write those subs or functions that are kind of hairy and hard to tell where they belong.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I have 5 subs on a form, each one has got a line 10. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Each one of them, it's going to go through, follow the code that you have, and then return, you know, based upon whatever your error handler is, it's going to return the line number that it's currently in.
Right. Okay.
So, okay. I'll have to come back to this. I was going to say I could run through all these, and there's a feature here. Okay, I'll come back to that. A good feature here, okay, so we went over line numbering. Everybody cool on the benefits of that? The code library. So basically that was being able to come in here and have something where you decide I'm going to use this quite often and I'm going to need to use it so often that having it built up is going to be something that's going to save me some time. Headers and error handlers, always good to have the error handlers to check on what's going on with your code, and then the headers in order to go through and be able to figure out what, have a good place to what you're doing, your revisions. You can see here I can get pretty detailed. I always have an author, a purpose, a revision history. So this kind of sets the framework up so I can keep that going. Reviewing quality. Go back to the MZ tools module. Okay, so I've done, you know, here's my module called MZ Tools Code. I've done some edits to it. I've put in some code. I've put in some things here. And now I want to take a look and kind of, one of the benefits of this particular thing is you can review the code that's in there, and it'll kind of give you some ideas as to some issues you might have with the code. So I just want to do the current file. It's going to run through a review of this code and give you some pointers to what's going on with your code. Let's see. Indenting of line 60 is not correct. Some of these are really not useful. I'll kind of go on another module that might be a little bit better. But let's say I wanted to look at this particular one, line indenting review. I can click on it. It should take me right there. Yep. So you can see where the cursor is. It's basically taking you to where this review is pointing you to. Now I want to take a look at this line indenting. So it'll drop you down to where you need to be matched up to what the review of the code is. Let me take a look at another one here, because this particular module is probably not a good example. Let's take a look at the toolbox. Now, if you did the current project, it take a long, long time, depending upon how big your project is. If I'm going through something, I like to review just a particular module or a particular forms code. Okay, some pretty cool things here too about this here. You'll see this public function called strip illegal, and it's nothing illegal.
Oh.
It's, yeah, it's basically to take illegal characters or commas, all the like, out of the text or string. But you can see that there's spell checking error. This comes up, and let me see what they've spell checked or what the issue is. Has spelling errors. 2 R's, right? No? Let's see. Does it let you update? I'm hovering. Okay. You can remove result from the list once you've done your error correction. You can see there's a lot to go through here. If I wanted to turn off some things, I think there's a way to turn off some of these rules that you're going through. One thing that might be good here, take a look at this one. This particular method, API send message, is not used. So it'll tell you what areas of your code maybe aren't in use any longer. This particular constant is not used. Not to say that you should get rid of it, because a lot of times with these constants, you're putting a number of them to be useful later, right? We'll get to maybe another example. So for this variable, HW or HWendLen, some handle window length, whatever, not being used. So as I'm going through my code, if I'm making a new procedure and I'm putting in a lot of things that I may or may not use, or I've put in and I don't need anymore, if I come in here and do a quality review of the code once I'm done, I can say, oh, okay, well, I don't need that any longer. I can, get rid of it and recompile my code, and everything will come out great in that particular spot. So very handy to have when you're just putting your code together, because I have a tendency of, okay, maybe I need to do this, and then I say, oh, I didn't need to do that, and I erase the code, but I haven't erased declaration.
Nobody does that.
I didn't even erase it, I just commented out. I got so much green in the
Yeah. I got more green than
I
that.
might need this code at some point, or I want to know why.
I like the way that worked. I can't get rid of it now.
So here's something I clicked on in view. The item has no header. When I click on it, it brings me to where that code is, and it says you want to insert a header. If I say yes, it's going to insert a header. So I can kind of manage some of the documenting in my code a little better if I wanted to. Something. Let me pick out one more example, and then we'll move on. So variables that are not used, headers that are not there, line indenting. As I mentioned, I don't know if you can turn these off and on, because it seems like nomenclature rules review method variables must be type prefix and Pascal case. I had that numerous times, and if I just want to not have to deal with that issue again, I think it's possible to turn that off. I haven't found it. Here's one. Method variables cannot be a single letter. Sure they can. You can say what?
It shouldn't be.
Well, if it's a counter, I use them.
May not or can?
In my world, cannot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Depends on how tight.
And I use I a lot. It's been used in code quite a bit that I've
Yeah,
tried
it's
over,
kind
and
of-
I just use
I
that.
know.
How about you?
Again, this is a desktop app. I guess if I was in a team environment, I'd have to form a little more.
Well, I was just thinking,
Well, you can.
No,
Yeah, you can.
It's a small I. I don't want to consider myself small.
You can create your own rules and then impose them on the caller.
There you go.
Possibly.
All counters must be one header.
doesn't work with my file.
Right. So we see, now I have these 2 reviews I've done. I can, I think, close the tab if I'm done doing it, and it gets me back then to the review I did. I want to go back and do something there. So it's some pretty useful reviews when you're creating code, and maybe if you're even going back and trying to flesh through some old code that you might have needed to update. All right, how am I doing on time?
Fine. Got another 45 minutes if you want.
Okay. All right, so anybody have any questions about some of the stuff I use quite often in my day-to-day routine? No?
A lot of it, I think you touched on, probably all, you know, like air handlers, headers.
Yeah. One thing that's nice in the immediate window, of course, you can see when I ran this particular procedure, let's say I want to run it again, this, because I've put in some, I go back here to my MZ Tools module. I see that, okay, you know, it said I wasn't putting my line numbers in with my code. I think I've done it all. But if I run this again, it might come back with a bunch of junk that kind of makes my window now something I've done before and something I've done now. It just kind of clutters it up. So one of the nice things about MZ Tools, I think, is the clear button in the immediate window. I don't think you get that with normal. Do you?
You don't get it normally. I use Luke's code tools.
We can't talk about here.
I know, we can't
We're trying to push this $63.96.
But,
It was $3 or $400.
but I have his code tools installed, and that's part of it as on a ribbon. I use it.
Okay,
No, it's not part of the IDE.
right. Which is surprising every time if I switch machines and then I start coding and I haven't downloaded MZ Tool, and I'm like, where's the clear button? It's very nice to have this little eraser here. You can get to it here. You can right mouse click in here. It's cool. I mean, it helps so that the next time I run a particular code, whether it's a debug, print, you know, where I'm putting it to the immediate window, I can come in here, maybe redo this check with my code and say, okay, now is there anything? Another one. You can come back. Put in your line numbers. Clear here, and come back and check.
Is it all indent your line?
Aha, so we're going to get to that. Line indenting. It's in here, and I'll review that. So this is kind of what I use day to day. In going through the MZ Tools software, a little more detail over the past couple weeks. Okay, mainly last night.
Just like every presenter.
With 3 kids and 2 jobs. I kind of came across some things that I was like, hey, why didn't I know that these things were here before? So I'll run through some of these. One of them is upper lowercase. I actually have a function set upper, or there's set upper, set lower. You can do that through code. But if you just want something really quick, let's say I want to change, you know, the name of my procedure. I'm coming in here to my module, and I want this to be uppercase. I can change it right here. Nice little thing, you can make it uppercase, and if it comes through uppercase, you can make it lowercase. So just something to kind of manage your code as you're going through here, or manage even, you know, sometimes you have strings that you bring over, they're all uppercase, wherever you got them on the web or whatever, you're just bringing over a text string, you want to apply it to the code that you have in here, included as part of maybe, you know, message box and have it lowercase. Now, what they don't have is properties, which would be nice. I think we all might have a little function in there in our toolbox to apply proper case. If not, that's good to have too. It's just not an MZ tool. Switch assignment. I made up a little coded example over here. This was something that I wasn't aware of was available. I've probably had a need for it many times before. Is the ability to switch the assignments here. So let's say I've applied first name, last name, and email to these variables. Now I want to, let's say I change X, Y, and Z here. Now I want to change and apply X, Y, and Z to these first name, last name, email. I can come in here and switch. So basically take what I've written before and turn it around. So paste that again for those who didn't see that. X equals Y equals Z equals. Now I've basically switched them around. So helpful if you're going through maybe pulling in a variable from a form or many variables from a form and you wanted to go through and apply it, or maybe you have a record set, you bring in stuff, you're applying it to a text box, and now you want to apply it the other way. You want to take the item and apply the text or the control value to it. Statistics. Now, the only reason I put this up here was because I thought, we can have a throwdown after this, everybody get out their best code, and then we run our statistics on it and see who comes up with the most, whatever, total lines, code lines, percentage code lines, classes, modules. We can have a battle royale or something. I don't know. I've never used it. I haven't had a thought as to why I might need it, but it's there anyway. And you can see it takes a little time with this particular application because this application is about 17 years old and has had a lot of add-ons. But something cool if you're looking at, maybe there's a module that you thought was long gone and you're like, hey, that's it has a lot of lines of code left. Why does it? I don't use it anymore.
I'm just having fun watching the green bar.
Well, that too.
That's a lot of code, Phil.
If you had a beer, maybe you can try to chug it before the green bar finished or whatever.
There you go.
Okay, you officially passed my largest application, which is about 52,000 code lines.
All right. Look at this. We didn't have to wait till after the presentation to throw down.
Because IBM used to call them K-law. 52 K-law.
K-Lock.
1,000 lines of code.
Anyway, that is as useful as you want to make it. And there's looks like there's other statistics here as well. Properties, interfaces, structures, enums. You'd probably beat me.
I use enums all over the place.
I'm going to hide that column then. All right, statistics. Find and replace. I did not know that there was a find and replace, and sure enough, there's a little find text button here. So you can put find and match the case, match the whole word. A lot of parameters you might put in something that is Access or Office based, and you can come in and it'll look for this. Let's try this one.
Put you on the spot. How is this any more effective than just replace built into the IDE? Because this only works on code, right?
Yeah. Well, one of the helpful things here is you have, again, this hyperlink.
Okay.
So it can run through all of your procedures, and let's say I had, I don't know, let me go to something. So I use this class module for my reports, so report object. So let's say every time I get the report form name, you know, I could do a find and search for this, and let's say I wanted to change it. Oops. Well, that's belong to a method. Let's close this. Close this tab. Here. I know it's going to be somewhere in here.
Period.
Let's try this. Okay. See what we find here. Again, I haven't gone through with a lot of these things. I just played around a little bit.
Okay.
So yeah, for this particular one, I could see where this calls for query extension.
I
And
can
then
see where this is useful because it shows you where everything is rather than jumping from one to the next. Like
Right.
the IDE does.
Right. So if I
That
could
could be useful.
come into, let's say, an area where I know I'm going to have that. I'm trying to there. There we go. Let's go back to my procedure here. I want to find out where this is in this whole procedure. I think looks like I can set it to the method. I can set it to the current project. So I can actually go through the current project if I wanted to find this. And it didn't find it at all. This seemed to be everywhere along here. Let's try that. There we go. So I think, yeah, what I concur with Jim that it'll lay it out to you, and if you wanted to, you could, you know, look through the whole project, and it will go through. It'll have this tree view of VBA documents, form this, form that, module this, module that, and then you can link through to, okay, where is it now? Where is it? You know, and I can go through and find this particular thing. So somewhat useful, and again, this Rick Fisher has a find and replace that's there. I haven't compared the two. I don't know what this one has.
Rick Fisher will also look through your forms and reports and your controls and all your properties, your macros, everything else. But it's getting old,
Yeah.
and it doesn't catch everything anymore.
I think he died.
Oh, okay.
I tried to, I had a copy years ago, and I thought I could get another one a couple years ago, and have tried mightily to contact him to pay for a license, and have had no luck whatever. And of course, the evaluation expired, so I can't use it, because I really like finding a place, but.
And that's something I have to add to. Apparently, my license I didn't add to this new PC. So I do have the find and replace from Rick Fisher, and will tell you that it doesn't work with Access 2016, or it's not, you know, certified
Right,
to run.
yeah, but it
Environment.
does.
Yeah, it does. I don't know. Like, have you? had
Probably not as
experience where
perfect as,
It didn't find something that you knew was there?
Particularly like in descriptions in query fields, it just doesn't always find them. But not many people use that property, putting the description of a
Right.
query field.
yeah.
Okay.
Whereas Luke's Total Access Analyzer, although it's not a replace, once you've done the analysis, it finds everything. So,
I may compare the two and just kind of report back to the group because I do have both. And now that I have this, you know, it's worth a try to see what. It won't find stuff on the forums, I would guess. Like it won't, you know, find stuff on the forum object. It might find it in the code.
and not to get too far away from this, but find and replace from Rick Fisher also, it will find things in macros, but it will not replace in macros. You have to do it manually. So if you've got macros, and no developer in his right mind has many, then you got to do those manually.
But it will find them so you can flesh through them.
Right.
Okay, well, the find and replace is there. I don't know how useful it is. It seems like it's basically usable for the code that's behind the form, the report, whatever. But you know, if you have the word snafu on the form, you probably won't find it on that object. Would be my guess. There's a copy from page 2. Now, where did I find that? Oh, okay. I suppose this would be useful if you just want to
Was that like a multi-clipboard?
yeah, it looks like it was a multi-clipboard that you could
That could be
Take that.
really useful. You're doing a lot of messing around and you've got juggling three or four things.
yeah. See how that works again. So I copied something basically that controls subreport. So it has a list of them. So it's kind of like a clipboard that you can see, basically. So, and then paste from. It's useful, and then you can then open this up to see which ones you want to be here. There you go. And now it's there for me to paste somewhere else. Figure out how to use it. Looks like it wasn't working the way I thought it would. This one was kind of nice to have too. There's a go to beginning. So if you ever find yourself kind of scrolling up through your code or kind of like, well, where's that code, you know? This has a back and forth. So you can go back up from the method, you can go up to the end of the class, beginning of class. So just kind of like a handy shortcut. I've had plenty of times where I'm like,
Control home will take you to the beginning of the class. Control up arrow will take you to the beginning of the method. And control and control down arrow do the same things.
but that's so archaic. That sounds like it's from Cobalt or something.
And it's part of the IDE, so you don't have to.
Yeah.
But I understand.
I did, but with a button, a click of a button. Look, it's a pretty button. So anyway, kind of useful to have, I think, in playing around with this, that I was able to navigate easily without going through those cryptic things. Method callers. So if I have, and I think I use an example here, update report year. Oops, sorry. So let's go update. So here, instead of the find, I'm using what I'm used to, basically finding here, and now I can, you know, you can click on this and then go to where the definition is. So that's the definition of the report. There's something called method callers here. This will tell me what's actually calling this particular function. In this case, yeah, public sub. So I can then, with these links here, I can navigate to where that particular line of code is. Very useful to have. I, in the past, have just used the find method. I'd go through and I'd basically come in here and do a find, and then I'd navigate through here. Okay, where is that? Where is that? Where is that? Now you have it on one page, which I think would seem to me that it's going to save me a little time to have it on one thing. Now I can navigate through, and I suppose these are in memory. I haven't checked to see if these disappear once you close the development environment. Have you noticed?
No.
So it may be something, where you can close down, shop, come back, or maybe have this. This is common. I don't know. We can try it here. Let's see. So don't say that. So let's say I came out, and I want to go back to my method callers, because I keep looking at this update report, whatever year, I forget what I selected. I come back into the integrated development environment. And I should be able to just right mouse click and look at method callers. Nope, disappeared. Once and done use. Unless,
That doesn't surprise me.
although if you look here at, that's what I was going to say. Was there an export option?
Yeah, say that.
This one was? Oh yeah, you can save it. Now, one of the nice things I'll show you, I'll kind of backtrack here. You'll notice in the desktop, you'll see some of these XML files. So these particular things are things that I can then pull into other areas. All they are XML files that are readable within this application. So what I did was I took it from another PC that I had, basically downloaded or exported it. Now, I don't know if there's that same export functionality. And for whatever reason, when you hover over these things, there's no little nice display on tips. This might be a copy, no? Oh, there we go. Copy results to clipboard. Export results to file. Well, there is an export to a text file. I don't know if there's an import. Maybe that's it. No. Okay, so there's no import. Oh, before 8 o'clock rolls around, I'll show you how you can export some stuff, which goes right to a nice spot that you don't have to manage too much the way it seems you have to do it there. A couple things. So I put as a header meh. The line indenting. So at one point there used to be, let's get back, there used to be something called Smart Indenter, which is gone, right? And we used, I guess that never was brought forward and nobody ever continued on with the development of that. And now there's also this thing called Rubber Duck, which I think I agree with Kevin was just too intrusive in the code. It seemed like it was always trying to, what did you say, Kevin? It was trying to, I don't know, access something.
Yeah, I think it wants to scan your entire project.
Yeah.
It starts up. There may be an option to disable that.
Oh, go ahead.
I said there may be an option to disable that and say, well, don't do it until I do, because it actually has the code for Smart Indenter in it.
And I think that's how I kind of got turned to it, was people had said this is where it resides now.
On the line indenting, since it doesn't give you an option for the number of characters, you might play with the IDE settings where it does the indenting. It might read that number. You might be able to do it by setting the indent size in the IDE.
Under options,
Yeah, tools, options.
tablet.
Yeah, right there, tab 4. It might read that. I don't know.
Well, give it a shot. Let's go back to our code. So I'll show you the line indenter. Let's just make everything here. The way you squash everything is you just basically tab everything over. But first you find your tab, outdent. And everything's flat against your. So now if I'm here in this procedure and I want to indent, there's the indent lines. So it did a pretty good job, I would say. I usually like to declare my variables right against
it looks like it's
declaration.
4.
Yeah, so we can, let's see, let's try. Oh, I think one of the unnerving things about MZ tools is it first deletes everything. So if you're ever going back, if you saw what I was doing is I was kind of Control Z, I kind of return back. All of a sudden, everything disappears. And you say to yourself, what happened? Oh my God. But one of the things it does is it deletes everything first and then reformats it. So if you're ever going through here and you've done MZ tool, you have to make sure that you can,
What could go wrong?
Control Z, yeah, what could go wrong? I think, what is it? Does it store 10 or 15 undos?
Right.
So if you're too far back, suppose if you're putting line numbers in, that could get a little messy. So nonetheless, just something to realize. But let me come in here to the options and let's set this to something noticeable like 10. Yeah?
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
There you go. Now you can change it.
But why isn't it in?
The guy who invented this says, why reinvent the wheel? I've got a number available to me.
There are a few places he's reinvented the wheel. There's a couple places in here. I'll have to, but nonetheless, the line indenter. And now that I know that you can change the tablets here, I think that might be useful.
Yeah, I use it all the time.
Yeah. All right. One of the things that'll, I don't know if there's an option to keep declarations variables first, but that would be a preference. Maybe I can talk to him about that. He's actually approachable. So if I know I invited him here to listen in if you wanted to, but he's their tech support as well. So he's selling and tech supporting as we do. So he's pretty responsive. I had an issue a while back with some of the functionality of the headers, and he put out a update and it was there 2 days later. So, what else? Sort alphabetically code elements. I didn't see this as really doing something unless you have maybe a list of things and you want to sort them within code alphabetically. What was that?
As long as it doesn't sort alphabetically your lines of code.
Let me see that. It's sort alphabetically selected lines. Yeah, so there you go. So it looks like it even sorts them based upon indentation as well. So EFL, and then, maybe it sorts them via ASCII. I don't know if this ASCII character is ahead of E.
Yeah, try to compile that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, if you undo it, it disappears.
I could see though, like if you highlighted a list of dims, you
Yeah.
wanted an alphabetical, because I tend to want to do that.
And, well, let's see, let's try that out. This would be one that NTD, NTS, NTW, yeah. See if this should switch workstation and domain and server. And that's what it did.
That could be useful for
Yeah.
places like that, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of these, sometimes takes another eye to kind of decide whether or not it's useful. There was something in here, collapsed projects.
All my projects collapse all the time.
And I didn't know what the real functionality of it was. And I probably put it out of my mind because now I can't even find it.
Well,
See.
doesn't it just collapse it over in the project window?
There's an actual button that will allow you to do that. Yeah. Well, if you find it, try to find it useful. And then just another comment, the menu bar here doesn't seem to be a great spot to use all this. I'd say the menu bar along the top, which is visible, and right mouse clicking, which then gets you here.
You know, everyone lives on the mouse now. If you're less current, you were a touch typist at one point, and the speed keys, you know, the Alt W for complete word and so forth. But I see he doesn't have those in his tools menu.
Which ones again?
Anyway. So his MC Tools menu up there might be easier, you know, especially if you use particular functions of it very frequently and can memorize the keys. But people just don't do that anymore. They just click.
Yeah.
So it's probably not worth his time.
So if you go Alt Z, sometimes you have to activate the menu with the Alt Z, and then does it show the?
There you go.
Alt, yeah, and then if you hold down Alt now, does it show keyboard shortcuts?
Hold down Alt.
Yeah.
No, it's
So Alt Z and then hold down Alt.
yeah. Alt Z. Hold down Alt.
And so okay.
So you could navigate with arrow keys at that.
Yeah.
So I did find the collapsed projects. It really just takes what is in the Project Explorer and kind of undoes the tree view that you have. So if you came in here and looked at other utilities and collapsed projects, it just takes everything in the Project Explorer and not too useful, but at least from my perspective. Let's see, what else did I include here? Using the menu bar, close all windows. So he reuses, I think, something that up here in the window area, which is a little more convenient anyway, kind of closer to everything, click-wise. See, the last thing I was going to show, two things I'll show you. One is the message bar, and I'll show you this because it comes in with a kind of something which I'd like him, this particular developer, to address if possible. If I have, let's say, code, and I want to put in, I don't know, a message here. So I could type in message box, and I could get my prompt and, you know, kind of navigate through all that. You know, as with some of these other things, he's put in something where you can actually create something on the fly and kind of visualize it. So I can come in here. And I can put in text. And I can decide, okay, I just want an OK button, but I want it to be critical. And if I insert it, I can copy it, maybe put it somewhere else. Well, but just a way that you can make this a message box kind of through the menus and kind of see what it is. I think there's even a way to view it. Now, one of the things I should mention here as well is, okay, let's say I have this and I want to create it somewhere else. I want to create something. I didn't create it the way I wanted to. If I put this in again, you know, I'm not going to be able to come out here and pick anything. So it's a pop-up box that, you know, I think it would be nice to be able to come in here and say, okay, you know, I want it to say this here, but I also want to stick with what I did before. So you kind of have to close it, come back out.
I think also on that, you don't need to go back to it. I think those options on the lower right are VB only. I don't think they apply to VBA.
The ones here, these?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was wondering
Yeah,
about that.
I didn't recognize them. And this is nice. This will put you in with select cases. So if you put in something here, here you get a number of them. So I want to make it informational and kind of put something out here because I didn't. So I put a little select case. There we go.
It's interesting he uses or. I always use plus. VB yes, no, cancel, or VB information. It sounds like it's one or the other. It's actually both.
Oh, really?
And the reason
I
plus
know you could
works
even
is
use
those
all.
are long integer values. So.
Yeah. So this here will allow you to string together. And you can even put default button one. So it'll always come up as, you know, yes. It really mess with your users. Hey, don't fat finger that. Don't go do that too fast. Yeah.
And the reason or works there is because it's a bitmap. And the way it's all set up, whether you add them or use a bitmap to do the ors, you get the same result. If you take a look at those values, they're all like powers of 2, and but have, you know, 128, 64, that stuff.
All right, one last thing before I'm done here, and then we can go over anything found you want to do. As you can see here, this XML gets created. You can create and send stuff that you have to maybe somebody else who wants to utilize the same stuff, or maybe another development PC. If you want to do that, you can take the header here. Let's say I want to export it. I'll export it as AFL headers. And I don't want to do these two, I just want to do the top ones. Now it's sent the AFL headers to a file, creates an XML file. Let's see, oops. So there's the XML file it's created. Now I'm over somewhere else, I save this, so that's my PC crashes, or I get a new development PC, or whatever it is I want to do, send this to a colleague. I can come in here and import it. And I think because these are named the same, it might override them. I'm not sure, but let's try it. Yeah, I'd have to rename them something different, but it's a good way to manage the stuff that you have, and maybe once you're done and you have the environment you want, you can export all your stuff and kind of save it off somewhere so that if something bad happens, you don't have to recreate the wheel, you know, go through your code, which I have to do. Okay, that's MZ Tools, kind of a cursory overview. This, a deep dive later after this, no. The deep dive probably do once you know, if you decide to use this, and if people want a deeper dive, I could probably do a presentation on that. So I'm going to go through and probably integrate some of the stuff, the cool stuff that I didn't know was available, and then kind of do some other stuff. Jim, I know you use this quite a bit. Anything that you've found useful that I didn't cover?
No, I don't use it as much as I make it sound. I use a lot of the pieces, but I tend to, it looks like use the same things you do.
Yeah.
And plus I've got the total visual code tools that kind of complements it and duplicates a lot of functions. And so I haven't looked deeply into it all, but this has encouraged me to look more deeply because I saw some stuff here as you were poking around that I really should look at. So it's worth it.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. You know, the free version was nice, but everybody's got to see their.
I saw 3 or 4 things
belly.
that I do other ways, you know, keeping code snippets elsewhere and, you know, copying them in and that kind of thing, but being able to access them right within the IDE would be pretty cool.
Because I keep code snippets in OneNote, but I never know where to go to find them. It's like, you know, where did I put it this time?
And I have mine in an Access date.
All my code snippets are in all my other projects.
Yeah.
I know where to go to get
them.
them.
Yeah, you still have to do that, though.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I did this in this project. Let me go
God, yeah.
snag that out.
Yeah.
I seem to think there was like a code repository within here somewhere that you could, have you?
I haven't done it in here because I use the code repository in Total Visual Code Tools.
Fair enough.
And also the Total Visual Sourcebook does the same kind of thing. It gives you a lot of code, but allows you to define your own areas. So.
It's something I may investigate, and who knows, I may find my way over to Total Visual Code, or the tools. But one thing that's nice about this is, I think with the Total Visual Tools, which have to, every time Access comes out with a new version, is you have to kind of keep progressing.
Generally, yes, not always.
Yeah. So I know this has worked for a number of versions, and I think it works for everything out there currently. If I recall, I think it worked for everything under the sun.
Well, I bought the Total Access emailer because I didn't want to write email functionality for one of my clients, and I thought, you know, I can just reuse this. And had some issues with it, and they haven't resolved them. I mean, I found workarounds, but they're not being very responsive.
Who is
That's
And there you can see here are the MZ Tools 8.0 for VBA 64, 32-bit, and it works with near everything. So. And putting in a piece of software to add on and help you develop stuff.
All right, well, I'm gonna, unless there are more questions, I'm gonna stop the recording anyway. Any more questions, folks? All right, well, thank you, Phil.